Walter Cronkite spent 27 hours straight covering the moon landing. He reported from war zones and never flinched. Then came the moment that changed everything. His glasses came off, his voice failed him. 51 million people watched the most trusted man in America lose control. But that moment of raw emotion hid something darker. Cronkite had secrets that would have destroyed everything, and he knew it. Walter Cronkite was born on November 4, 1916, in St. Joseph, Missouri. His father was a dentist, and his mother came from a German immigrant family. While other kids played, Walter watched the world. He wrote in notebooks about the weather, things he overheard, and what people did in town. He treated life like a reporter before he even knew what a reporter was. By the time he was 8, he was reading more newspapers than most adults, and asking them about current events like he was hosting a quiz show. His father's patients came from all walks of life, and Walter listened to their stories like every word mattered. He wasn't just learning facts, he was studying people. When Walter was 10, his family left Missouri and moved to Houston, Texas. That move changed everything. Houston was growing fast. The city buzzed with ambition and new ideas. At San Jacinto High School, Walter joined the school newspaper, the Campus Cub. By his junior year, he became the editor. He didn't just write headlines, he set the tone. In 1933, he won first prize in a statewide contest for student journalists. That award wasn't just a win, it put his name in front of professionals. Suddenly, people in the real news business were paying attention to this kid from Houston. One of them was Fred Burney, his journalism teacher. Burney saw how driven Walter was, and he gave him control of the school paper, something almost no high school student ever got. Burney didn't believe in learning by watching, he believed in learning by doing. In 1935, he helped Walter get a reporting job with the Houston Post. While Walter was still in college, he covered student politics and sports. That meant real deadlines, real editors, and real pressure, but it didn't scare him. Burney's lesson stuck: be accurate, be fair, ask the hard questions. Walter never forgot them. That same year, Walter made a move that shocked everyone around him. He dropped out of the University of Texas after only 2 years. Most people clung to school during the Great Depression, hoping a degree would protect them, but Walter wanted the real thing. He wanted to be out in the world, not stuck in a classroom. Soon after, he got hired by the Houston Press. He covered crimes, politics, anything they threw at him. It was gritty, fast, and full of surprises. He called leaving college the best decision I ever made, and history proved him right. He also took a shot at radio. In 1935, he started at WKY in Oklahoma City. Then, in 1936, he moved to KCMO in Kansas City. That's when the station told him he couldn't use his real name. They gave him a fake one, Walter Wilcox. This was common back then. Stations didn't want listeners following popular voices to other stations. It was an early lesson in branding and control. Listeners thought Wilcox was real. Walter even made up details during live sports broadcasts when the telegraph feed failed. He improvised, filling in the blanks with confidence and instinct. It wasn't pure honesty, but it was convincing, and it taught him how much power a voice could have. That same year, something else happened. He met Mary Elizabeth, Betsy, Maxwell at the station. She worked there too, and they connected instantly. She was smart, funny, and driven. They got married in 1940. Betsy became the women's editor at the Kansas City Journal-Post. Later, she worked at Hallmark, publishing papers for troops during the war. Walter traveled the world. Betsy kept things steady. Their marriage lasted nearly 65 years, through war, fame, and long absences. She was his anchor. She passed away in 2005, the end of a partnership that had started inside a small radio booth and endured a lifetime. In 1937, Walter joined United Press, one of the biggest newswire services in America. The work was tough, and the deadlines were brutal. His first big assignment was the New London school explosion in Texas. More than 200 students and teachers died. It was a horrifying scene. Cronkite had to keep his emotions in check and get the facts fast. At United Press, one mistake could cost your job. Every minute counted. He learned how to write fast and accurately. He also saw how cutthroat journalism could be. Everyone wanted the scoop, and some bent the rules to get it. In 1943, during World War II, Edward R. Murrow from CBS offered him a dream job. Murrow wanted Walter to join the Murrow Boys, a top group of war reporters. The offer was tempting, $125 per week, almost triple what Walter was making. He accepted. But when he told United Press, they panicked. His boss offered him a raise, and then Hugh Bailey, a senior executive, added $20 more per week. That changed everything. Cronkite turned CBS down. Murrow was furious, and the two didn't speak for years. But that decision gave Walter the chance to cover the war up close, and it earned him a reputation as someone loyal to the work, not the glamour. Walter Cronkite was not just a man with a microphone. In 1943, he was handed a parachute and sent straight into war. He joined something called the Writing 69th, a hand-picked group of 8 American reporters. Their job was not to write from behind desks. They were trained to fly bombing missions with the U.S. 8th Air Force over Nazi Germany. This wasn't a field trip. They trained with shotguns, learned how to parachute, practiced gunnery, and studied German aircraft to spot them during combat. It was fast, intense, and dangerous. On February 26, 1943, Cronkite went on his first mission. The target was supposed to be Bremen, but clouds forced a change. Instead, the bombers went after U-boat pens in Wilhelmshaven. Things went wrong quickly. German fighters attacked, and one of Cronkite's fellow journalists, Robert Post from the New York Times, died when his plane exploded midair. Cronkite was lucky. He survived the flight and even helped fire a machine gun during the attack. It was rare for reporters to fight, but that day Cronkite did. The death of Post changed everything. The military ended the program, and the reporters never flew combat again. But Cronkite's courage that day changed how war reporting was done. A year later, he was back in the line of fire. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, he landed in Normandy with Allied forces. Most reporters stayed behind the lines, but not Cronkite. He was there on the beaches as bullets flew. Then, he did something even more extreme. He jumped with the 101st Airborne Division, parachuting into enemy territory. He joined soldiers facing some of the worst fighting in France. It wasn't just for the story. The 101st and 82nd lost over 3,000 men during that campaign. Many were shot out of the sky before they even touched the ground. Cronkite wanted the truth, and he was willing to risk everything to get it. That earned him respect. He didn't just write about danger, he lived through it. After the war ended, Cronkite's next job was no less intense. He went to Nuremberg to cover the trials of top Nazi leaders. It was 1945, the war was over, but the truth was just coming out. Cronkite sat in the courtroom as men like Hermann Göring and Rudolf Hess answered for the Holocaust. He saw the machinery of Nazi propaganda exposed. He learned how media could be twisted into a weapon. That experience stuck with him. It shaped how he viewed journalism. From then on, he treated information like a loaded gun. It could help or it could destroy. He understood that reporters had a duty not just to report, but to protect the truth. In 1946, Cronkite took another assignment. This time, he went to Moscow. The war was over, but a new kind of conflict was beginning, the Cold War. Cronkite became United Press's bureau chief inside the Soviet Union. For 2 years, he reported from a place where every word was watched. Censorship was everywhere. The KGB kept eyes on him. The news was controlled by the state. Cronkite had to read between the lines, talk in whispers, and trust no one. But he learned how regimes use fear and lies to keep control. That knowledge helped him later as he covered Cold War politics. He didn't just report facts, he understood what those facts meant in a world ruled by power and fear. All these experiences taught Cronkite more than just bravery. They taught him how the game really worked. He wanted to be on the front lines, yes, but he also knew that being there gave him an edge. It made him look brave. It gave him stories no one else had. He learned how to walk the line, tell the truth, stay close to power, and protect his career. When CBS brought Walter Cronkite on board in 1950, no one expected him to change television forever. He was a print journalist, not a TV man. He had covered World War II and the Nuremberg trials for United Press. He was respected but unknown to TV viewers. Cronkite had already turned down an offer from Edward R. Murrow. He didn't see television as serious journalism, but CBS took a risk. They wanted to compete in the new world of TV news. Cronkite finally said yes and joined WTOP-TV in Washington. At that time, television news was just 15 minutes long and shown late at night. Most Americans still got their news from newspapers and the radio, but things were changing fast. By the early 1950s, more than half of American households owned a TV. Cronkite's calm voice and sharp reporting stood out. In 1951, he started anchoring up to the minute. Viewers trusted him, and his career was taking off. CBS's gamble was working. When he moved to New York, Cronkite began hosting shows like You Are There, which mixed history and entertainment. But something else was happening behind closed doors. Cronkite was building power. He made friends in the right places and cut secret deals. Some of these would be scandals today. One example was a quiet arrangement with Panama, where they flew his family to exotic locations. It looked like a free vacation, but no one questioned it back then. Cronkite also worked behind the scenes to get big interviews. He once pushed Robert Kennedy to run for president, then scored the first interview where Kennedy hinted at it. Cronkite wasn't just a journalist, he was a player. He knew how to work the system, and that helped him rise fast. But it also brought ethical questions that still linger. In 1952, CBS gave Cronkite a new assignment. He would anchor the National Convention coverage. No one had done this before, it was the first time. The Republican and Democratic conventions were broadcast live across the country, and Cronkite became the anchor. The word anchor was first used to describe his role. He gave the chaotic events a sense of order. But again, behind the scenes, he bent the rules. He reportedly bugged a GOP committee room to hear secret talks. That would be a major scandal now, but it went unnoticed then. Cronkite's work changed how political events were covered. People at home could finally see the process, and it was groundbreaking. But it also showed how far Cronkite was willing to go for a scoop. April 16, 1962, marked a major shift. CBS replaced Douglas Edwards with Cronkite as the anchor of the evening news. Edwards had been the face of CBS since 1948, but the world was changing. The country was facing civil rights protests, nuclear fears, and political turmoil. CBS needed someone who felt serious, steady, and sharp. Cronkite was perfect. He was given control not just in front of the camera but also behind it. He became managing editor, which meant he helped decide what stories were told and how. It gave him power no anchor had ever had. He used it to protect his airtime and steer the news in his direction. Some colleagues said he could almost dictate anything. It wasn't just a promotion, it was a full takeover. Cronkite became the voice of CBS, and soon the voice of America. Then CBS made a bold move. On September 2, 1963, they doubled the evening news from 15 to 30 minutes. No one had done that before. It allowed for deeper stories and live interviews. On the very first night, Cronkite interviewed President Kennedy. That sent a clear message: this was serious journalism now. But there were challenges. The studio had to be rebuilt, and Cronkite had to adjust to the longer format. Still, it worked. By 1967, CBS Evening News was the most watched news program in the country. Cronkite's calm during crises helped, especially when Kennedy was assassinated. Cronkite became the face of national mourning. He removed his glasses, paused, and then said, "President Kennedy was dead." His voice cracked, and he looked down. Millions watched. At that moment, More than 51 million homes had their TVs on. Cronkite's emotion was real. He wasn't reading the news, he was sharing the grief. That moment changed him. Viewers started calling him America's uncle. He wasn't just trusted, he was part of the family. Anchors had always been distant, but Cronkite broke that wall, with tears in his eyes and truth in his voice. But the public didn't know everything. Cronkite had a close relationship with Kennedy. They weren't just acquaintances, they were allies. Cronkite had even convinced Kennedy to give him a secret interview that wouldn't fly today. He had strong opinions about politics. He disliked Nixon and Goldwater, and he supported liberal Democrats. He even helped Bobby Kennedy prepare for a run. Cronkite used his access to push agendas. It raised questions about how impartial he really was, but the public never saw that side. They saw the calm, honest face on TV, and they believed it. On February 27, 1968, everything changed on American television. Walter Cronkite, known as the most trusted man in the country, went on air after a 2-week visit to Vietnam. The timing was crucial. The Tet Offensive had just shocked Americans. The government had claimed progress, but the scenes from Vietnam said otherwise. That night, Cronkite ended his report with a bold statement. He said the war had reached a stalemate. It wasn't hopeful. It wasn't neutral. It was personal, and it came from the anchor. Millions believed without question. His words weren't random. They were carefully chosen. He didn't say America was losing, but he didn't say victory was close either. He said staying in the war no longer made sense. That moment blurred the line between news and opinion. The message hit hard. People who had supported the war began to question it. Cronkite's conclusion didn't just describe the situation, it gave people permission to doubt. Inside the White House, the reaction was immediate. President Lyndon Johnson reportedly said, "If I've lost Walter Cronkite, I've lost Middle America." That quote, whether real or not, summed up how powerful Cronkite had become. He was no longer just a news anchor. He was the national voice of reason. Just over a month later, on March 31st, Johnson shocked the nation again by saying he wouldn't run for re-election. Historians still link that decision to the fallout from Cronkite's broadcast, but there was more to the story. Years later, in 2012, historian Douglas Brinkley published a biography that raised serious questions. He revealed that Cronkite's Vietnam special might not have been as fair as it seemed. According to the book, some interviews were edited to paint a darker picture. Soldiers who had spoken of progress were cut short, and civilians who gave hopeful views were left out. The editing made the war look worse than the full footage showed. This sparked a firestorm. Critics said Cronkite had crossed the line. He had used his trusted image to sell a story shaped by his personal beliefs. He wasn't just reporting facts, he was guiding opinion. And because of who he was, people followed. This wasn't the first time Cronkite's emotions had slipped through. During the Apollo 11 launch on July 16, 1969, Cronkite's calm vanished for a moment as the rocket lifted off. He couldn't help but shout, "Go, baby, go!" It was raw, real, and completely unplanned. That phrase echoed through homes and newsrooms. It wasn't just a cheer, it showed the space race had become deeply personal for him too. The real test came hours later. Cronkite stayed on air for 27 out of 30 hours during the lunar landing. Millions watched, breath held. At its peak, 500 million people were tuned in. In the US, nearly half of the 57 million TVs were set to CBS. Cronkite never lost focus. Colleagues nicknamed him Iron Pants for his stamina. It wasn't just about delivering facts, it was about capturing the wonder of something never seen before. But the launch wasn't smooth for everyone. CBS had built a plywood booth so Cronkite and his crew could see the Saturn V take off. When the engines roared, the force nearly blew the window in. Cronkite had to leap up and hold it with his hands, live on air. The walls shook, and dust filled the room. Still, he stayed with it, shouting over the noise and describing every second as the rocket disappeared into the sky. That moment showed how close he was willing to get to the action, both physically and emotionally. His bond with NASA went deeper than most knew. Cronkite had behind-the-scenes access few others enjoyed. NASA trusted him. He was more than a reporter to them, he was part of the team. He rarely criticized the agency. That closeness led to something no other journalist received, NASA's Ambassador of Exploration Award. Some saw this as well-earned, others saw it as a warning. Was he still reporting the truth, or was he helping NASA protect its image? He was often called the Dean of Space. He knew the missions inside and out, but he also celebrated them with wide-eyed excitement. He laughed, gasped, and even begged to be the first journalist sent into space. When he turned 70, some said he had stopped being neutral. But for viewers, his passion was contagious. He made science feel like history in the making. In October 1972, just days before the election, Walter Cronkite took a risk that changed everything. On back-to-back nights, he used 22 minutes of the CBS Evening News to explain the Watergate scandal to the American public. The first night he spoke for 14 minutes. The next night he used another 8. At that time, nearly half of the country didn't even know what Watergate meant. A Gallup poll showed that 48% of Americans had never heard of it. But millions were watching Cronkite, and he made them pay attention. No other network gave the story that much time. Cronkite's broadcast was like taking 2/3 of a front page and filling it with one explosive story. The response was immediate. Washington Post editor Ben Bradley later said that Cronkite's report gave the scandal the push it needed. People who didn't believe the Post before changed their minds after watching Cronkite. His words gave the story legitimacy. Without that, Nixon might never have resigned. The full truth could have stayed buried. But Cronkite wasn't just a reporter. He became one of Nixon's personal enemies. The White House had a secret list of people they wanted to punish, and Cronkite's name was on it. He was one of 220 targets. Nixon's aides wanted to use the IRS and other agencies to go after them. Cronkite had rattled the president. His voice reached too many homes, and his words hit too hard. After Cronkite's first Watergate report, the White House made calls. CBS gave in. The second night's segment was shorter. They tried to silence him, but it didn't work. His reporting was too powerful. It shook the White House. Nixon saw him as a threat. What Cronkite did wasn't routine. Back then, news was supposed to be quick and neutral. He broke that rule. He turned his entire show into a deep dive, and that choice changed the way TV news worked. He explained Watergate clearly and gave people the full picture. He didn't play it safe, he told it like it was. Both sides, he pointed out lies, he exposed abuse of power. Other journalists followed his lead. His choice pushed the media to dig deeper. In 1974, Cronkite received an Emmy for his Watergate reports. He called it his most valued award. That was unusual. It wasn't just for news, it was for activism. His work blurred the line between reporting and fighting for truth. The award said something loud: journalism didn't just have to inform, it had to challenge. It had to demand answers. Cronkite's reporting helped bring down Nixon's aides and forced Nixon to resign. That Emmy wasn't about fame, it was about accountability. But Cronkite had a hidden side. His image was spotless, but his secrets were not. According to biographer Douglas Brinkley, he had a long-standing deal with Panama Airlines. They gave him and his family free flights to exotic places. He never told the public. It was a major conflict of interest. He used his power as a TV icon to get luxury perks. Today, that would spark public outrage. Back then, no one knew. He kept his reputation clean. There was more. Cronkite, the calm, serious face on TV, liked to party in private. He went to topless bars, shared drinks and jokes with dancers. His network helped keep that quiet. It was an open secret inside the industry, but never reached viewers. In the social media age, that kind of double life wouldn't last, but during Cronkite's era, it stayed hidden. One of the worst moments came in 1952. CBS secretly bugged a credentials meeting at the Republican National Convention. Cronkite was behind it. A CBS technician wired the room. They did it to get a jump on the competition. The excuse was that it served democracy, but it was spying. Cronkite faced no punishment. The media didn't hold itself accountable back then, and Cronkite kept rising. He also got involved in politics in secret ways. In 1968, he met privately with Senator Robert Kennedy. He encouraged Kennedy to run for president. A few days later, Cronkite interviewed him on TV. Kennedy hinted he might run, then announced his campaign. Cronkite wasn't just reporting, he was influencing. He also edited stories to favor certain candidates. None of that reached the public. Viewers thought he was neutral. He wasn't. Years later, Cronkite admitted his fear. He told close friends, "I thought that someday the roof was going to fall in. I don't know why to this day I got away with it." He knew he had crossed lines, but nothing ever came of it. The system protected him. The public never saw behind the curtain. Even after his so-called retirement in 1981, Cronkite stayed in the spotlight. He said, "Old anchormen you see don't fade away. They just keep coming back for more." He meant it. He hosted a science show, reported for CBS, CNN, and NPR. In 1998, at 81, he covered John Glenn's return to space. He also hosted concerts, wrote columns, and stayed active in public debates. His voice remained loud. People still listened. He died on July 17, 2009, at age 92. That wasn't just the end of a life, it was the end of something bigger. Cronkite had been the voice of America for nearly 2 decades. When he spoke, people believed him. He guided the country through war, loss, and triumph. He was the last of his kind. No journalist since has earned that level of trust.